There we go. It's 2:30 p.m. It's a Wednesday afternoon. And you know what it is? It's Innovation Fika with Donny, live from Teknikringen 1, KTH, Stockholm, Sweden, the world. Every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m., I do my innovation coffee break, my Innovation Fika, where I interview a guest about some cool technology, a new startup, or just a really cool idea. Usually, most often, I manage to get all three into a marvelous Kinder egg of Innovation Fika. So that's what this is, and that's what you're watching. So make sure to tune into this channel every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. for a new, exciting interview. All of the content is also saved on my YouTube page. And if you go to my Medium page, you will find all of my content, all of my posts as well, because I post almost daily on LinkedIn and Instagram and other places where they post about innovation, inspiration, startup, entrepreneurship. So, but on my Medium page, I collect everything. So there's 416 posts there from a daily post. And I'm also aggregating all of my video content there and all of my articles. So everything will be there. And you can also subscribe to my newsletter, my weekly musings on LinkedIn. And for this show, Innovation Fika with Donny, you can go to the LinkedIn page, Innovation Fika with Donny, and have a check out that, because that's where you'll find all of the coming shows as well. And you'll be notified of every coming show. I publish it about 3 or 4 days before every coming show. So that's that. We are live now on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Unibid, and Twitter. So you can choose your channel of choice. And enough about that. Enough about me. We are here today with my very dear guest. And really happy to have him here. He's a KTH alumni. KTH Innovation Alumni even, and a successful startup co-founder, Filip Martinsson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm really impressed with your setup you got going on there and your persistence, like doing this every week. It's incredible.
I know. This is episode, what did we say? This is episode 54. So yeah, it's we're getting there. We're getting there. So thank you for coming.
Great to be here.
And we have a coffee break about, as we said, like ask me anything kind of thing, on crypto, blockchain, NFTs, ICOs, whatever it could be. And I know I have the right person here, because I know we'll come into Moralis and everything you're doing. But I know that you, for a fact, that you spent the whole first period of that startup actually making educational content on those concepts. So we have the right guy in the studio. So post your questions in the comments and make sure to keep the comments going. And if you want to go to Moralis, of course, it's moralis.io. So let's start with that. Let's start with you and what you're doing today. What is Moralis?
Yeah, so Moralis is a development platform for Web3 developers. It helps developers that want to build applications in Web3 to do that without having to care about the underlying infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So they can, in a very similar way to how developers would build applications in the normal web space or mobile space, where you have great tooling to get up to speed quickly, to get your app from just an idea to prototype stage to going live to production, all in one tool. And that's what Moralis is, but it's that, but for Web3. Because crypto and Web3, from a developer's perspective, comes with a specific set of challenges that doesn't exist in the normal web space, that has to do with justifying how the technology works. That makes it quite difficult to get going, especially if you come from the normal web space, where you're not even used to any of the tools or infrastructure that is native to crypto and to Web3.
And that's the cue for me saying, we're saying Web3 a lot here. And yes. I've been going, Web3. But let's actually just explain what is Web3 when we say Web3.
Yeah, sure. And to summarize it, Web3 is, in addition to the web we already know, to the internet that we already know, but we add a component of value and ownership to it. So similar to how when the internet came, we could share information over protocols without any middleman, it's peer-to-peer. Now, with the advent of cryptocurrency, we can share value digitally through a protocol, peer-to-peer, and it's those protocols that we layer on top of the existing internet applications to create applications where we can digitally, without middlemen, peer-to-peer, address topics like ownership and digital value, and transfer those and stream those across the internet protocols. And so that's the simple explanation. And that takes the form of anything from decentralized financial apps, where you can transact with people through your cryptocurrency wallet, through a web interface with anyone in the world, where you can save and earn yield on your money you can invest, or when it comes to digital games, the metaverse that we hear a lot about today, where digital ownership is at the center of that question, and how that's going to work in the future when more and more of our lives are online and more of what we value is digital.
I actually read an article you wrote about the metaverse.
Yes.
Let's do another session some other day and talk about the metaverse, because that's a whole different session on that one. But coming back to Web3, thank you, by the way, for that very, very good explanation of Web3. And now even I have something to talk about at the next dinner session, because I can say, the whole way. Perfect. Thank you. That's great. But let's just back up a bit historically, because you had a startup at KTH Innovation,
yes,
that you run, and as many other startups that we start out with, it didn't work. It didn't work out. And we don't need to talk about that. But what I want to know, what I'm super curious, is what did you learn by failing with that one that you could bring into your new one with Moralis?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was one of the most important experiences, I think, that led up to our later success with our startups in crypto. Because that experience of running a business and failing, it was one of the hardest things I've done, because I put in so much time into that with the rest of my co-founders, and also my own money. I put in all the money I had at the time as a student into that business, and it turned out that it sucked. And I, of course, had wished that I had found out sooner than after doing that for, a year part-time and then a year full-time. And then I found out that it was crap. So I would have loved to have done that to get that insight in the beginning. It would have saved so much work, so much money, and so much emotional stress. So when that moment came where we just had to say, this product is not going to fly, so we completely canceled it, we gave up on that. The biggest learning that I got from that was the fact that don't spend so much time building stuff that you think is important, because you don't know if it is. I mean, it's always your baby, and when you're there in the middle of it, you think it makes total sense to put everything into it. But it doesn't. You need to go to market incredibly quickly. And at the time, I probably thought I was going to market quickly as well, or we were doing that. But when we're talking quickly, you need to talk about weeks or months when you have your first interaction with the market. You either have to build prototypes and present that incredibly quickly, or even better than that, you have to start selling before you really have anything to sell. And that depends on what industry you're in. It doesn't work for every industry.
Of course.
But when we started our first business after that, me and my co-founder, Ivan, we started an online educational business in crypto, because the knowledge gaps were so big, especially in development. And that later on became the biggest online academy for crypto in the entire world. And when we started that, we didn't start off with a huge idea of building this huge platform for learning. We started off creating one course. And we saw a need in the market, but we didn't know that it was there. So we sold the course before I'd even created it. And we gave them a good price because they purchased before. But then we created the content and the course after we got the response from the market, not just people telling us they wanted it, but they actually put their money on the table.
That's a divider as well, because it's a huge difference.
Yes, it's a huge difference.
People saying, sure.
Especially here in Sweden, where everyone is so kind. So when you come to them with an idea, they're not gonna shoot you down. They're gonna encourage you, and that's good, but it's also a problem. Yeah. But when people actually put money on the table, you know that they're serious. And then from that point, that then snowballed into the next course and the next course. And we continued on that until we had a whole suite of courses, and that then turned out into an entire business of itself.
Incredibly, it's because the thing is, I can stand here and I can turn the same color as my blue jersey, telling people to go out and try it on their customers. But it's not until they actually experience it hands-on.
And to be honest, I don't know because people told me that, I think, at the time. But it doesn't matter. In the end, it's sort of like you have to experience it. I know. And I think that's your experience too, right?
Oh, well, yes. Oh, yes. I've tried it. I've failed it wonderfully as well. Yes. And it's always that. It's always your baby. And it's like, sometimes I compare it to, when you have a dream and the most surreal things happen in the dream, but they feel completely logical in the dream, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing with your startup. It feels, for you, it's obvious. Yeah. And it's like that. People love it. And then you present to people and they go, huh?
Yeah.
Or they go, nah. But it was such it sounded so good.
Yes.
Right?
And then when you wake up from the dream, you realize how ridiculous it was.
Exactly. Yes. So anyway, so they started working with crypto, and you're talking about the knowledge gap in crypto. And so, but then what is the, it's a big question to say, what is the state of crypto today? But if we talk about crypto today, which is a few years ahead than when you started, what would you say what is like the crypto industry and what's going on? What is crypto today as you see it?
Yeah. I still think that crypto at its core is about enabling people to get more freedom in their financial life, to enable people to be able to, have the same freedom you would have with cash in the real world, where you actually you have the cash in your pocket, you own it, it's yours. It isn't at any bank. That same feeling, but in the digital international world, where you own your digital money and you can transact with it just like you would with cash, but on an international level. And it enables people not only to transact internationally, but it also enables people that don't have access to global financial services to come into that space and actually be able to be part of monetary flows, whether it's that you're building a startup in a country where access to those services are low, or you're just working and sending remittances abroad, whatever it is. It's about enabling people to transact internationally, to get that freedom with their own money. That's the core of it. But then that has developed, and the industry has, of course, expanded in the number of uses, but also in terms of innovation on top of that when it comes to the different financial services. And then also seeing how this ties into digital ownership overall as we go into a more digital everyday life. And this is where metaverse comes in. But I think that the progress of crypto in general is probably slower than many people would have hoped. I think the ideals of crypto is still hasn't come into fruition yet.
No.
But it's definitely an industry that has grown. And when you see things happening around the world, anything from hyperinflation in South and Central America to banks seizing assets in Russia, whatever it might be, these questions about who really owns the money that I have, especially in the digital world, is really at center stage for many people, many people's minds. And that's still a valid question and something that this industry tries to address.
It actually came up to my mind just the other day because I was reading the paper. And as we all know, in the times like this, we have a crisis in Ukraine and you see all of these queues of people, and again, I have to go back to cash.
Yeah.
And also in Sweden, people are going to the cash machines and taking out their cash.
Yeah.
And, that's what we fall back on,
Yeah.
The paper cash. But what got me thinking then was, but what if either the paper cash runs out because there's nothing left in the hole in the wall, or if my currency through restrictions or whatever actually gets, restricted.
Yeah. And cash still has, the ultimate benefit of being physical in the sense that I don't need internet or I don't need electricity to power it, right? But it comes with the drawback, of course, as well, that governments can print cash. So they can still become worthless even though you own it in your pocket, right? But it gets rid of the problem of having another institution telling me what I can do or cannot do with the money that is really mine.
So
but that's a bit of the financial background on crypto.
Yeah.
But I would say in the space where we're working, that's only part of it. Now there's a lot of innovation and companies starting in the gaming industry specifically, and that's something where Moralis has played a large role. A lot of our customers are in the gaming or metaverse space where they're trying to figure out how can we improve the user experience when it comes to owning digital items in game or in digital worlds overall.
I totally get that. I mean, I've been working a lot with online communities for like the last 10 years or so. And, a lot of them are, the whole monetization is usually based on some kind of virtual purchase. You buy something for your avatar or your character. And previously there hasn't been, the possibility of buying a jersey or anything that has any sort of, it has been scarcity, but in not kind of proof of that.
Yeah.
So not, I think when crypto and blockchain and that comes into play as well, when it comes to proving digital ownership.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's all about digital ownership, and what Bitcoin originally did when it was launched was it was the first digital good that was actually scarce, because when you work digitally, you can just copy paste things, you can just clone it, and who's to tell you that the copy is not valid? So that's really the innovation that Bitcoin brought, and that is also what's interesting now in the general gaming space, where you can have digital scarcity, provable digital scarcity, and also provable ownership.
Yeah. And what about, and I know we have questions coming in as well, but I want to ask you one more question as well. But regarding digital ownership, because then it's automatically, in my mind as well, it connected to NFTs as well.
Yeah.
So what is that? Just so we explain it as well.
Yeah. So NFTs is, it's short for non-fungible token, but it's really just a word for a token that gives you ownership of a specific asset. Well, cryptocurrency, they're fungible tokens because they're all the same. You don't care if you have this Bitcoin or this Bitcoin because they're the same. But what the NFT is just, it's a fancy word for saying that you can now own tokens that are individually different.
Okay.
So a specific shirt in the digital space would have a specific ID as a token, and that token is separate from my shirt. It has a different ID.
Yeah.
And we can then attach different properties to these digital tokens so that they look different and they have different abilities and so on. While as before that, all the tokens were the same because they were means of digital, just money, cash. Yeah.
That was a really, really good explanation. Thank you. And I think, even though I've sort of kind of known what it was before, that's the first time I've really understood it. Thank you. I knew there was a great idea of asking this guy to come into the studio. So we have some questions coming in. And as I said, make sure to post your questions online so we get them in here live online as well. Here from Manuel, that I know is thinking a lot about the whole space. But his question is, how does blockchain and digital ownership reshape the big data industry? That's a nice small question here.
Yeah, that's a huge question. And let's see, I don't know exactly how to answer that, but in and of itself, blockchain and digital ownership is a big data problem. For us, it's a big data problem because all of a sudden you have a digital ledger with all of the transactions of the entire world that, for us, we're going to process and index and provide services around. So that's the big data problem. But I don't think that's what it means with the question. It's probably more about how the big tech companies work with data today. And there are, at least a lot of ideas and ideals for people wanting to build platforms where the ownership of data is more tied to the user, where in general, you own not only your assets, but you also own your data. And there are decentralized protocols for dealing with this, but not really anything that has really come into fruition yet, because people still, the best platforms are still the centralized platforms, where people and advertisers go, and they still provide the best user experience and the easiest onboarding and so on. But there's a chance to change that, at least in parts of the internet where people might be more privacy minded, with decentralized protocols for storing data. And
that's another interesting part, because you mentioned it. You said it went very quickly, but you said it as well, because there's been a lot of talk about services which will help you own your data. And then you can decide which data you want to sell to whichever big company who wants to take it. But on the other hand, there's a trade-off between that and just the convenience of coming somewhere. And I go to like Google and I do a Google search and things kind of work.
And it's free.
And it's free. And
there's no paywall. There's nothing stopping
exactly. You. And now and again, you see people posting on Facebook, "Oh, I hereby claim my data." It's like, yeah, but did you see the terms of service that you actually filled in when you clicked? So the definition of free, of course, yes, but it's an interesting to contemplate about the trade-offs that we're prepared or not prepared to do.
Yes.
Because the shift needed to get to a point where we own the data and we are in charge of that will also, I'm just thinking aloud here, but it will also need a bigger awareness amongst people what they could or should not do. Because right now people, they're happy with going to Facebook and Google and just having it work for them. It works, it's so, but maybe this could be a part of shifting that.
But I probably agree with you that it's less of a technical problem and more of an economical or just user problem where we're used to using the technologies that we have. And also big platforms like Facebook, like YouTube are very hard to compete against because it's a network effect. And once you have the big network, I mean, that's where you want to be. So if someone tries to do something competing, it's very difficult because the network is small, and the power of social media, how interesting it is to use, is exponential with the number of users. So it's very hard to compete with an established social media platform, whatever it's video or social Twitter.
It's really, really interesting. And I think that we live in such interesting times as well, where, I mean, just as an example, I took the example with the cash money out of the war, and that was, if you just look 6 months back, I wasn't thinking about ever, going somewhere and taking my cash out because, hey, I've got everything on my bank and my plastic. I haven't even seen the new paper bills in Sweden. I haven't ever used them because I've been using plastic for like 10, 12 years.
And that works until it doesn't work.
Exactly.
That's the problem. Everyone is going to get there at once.
And not until this weekend did I saw, the queues and the ATMs and everything. I'm going sort of, maybe, should I go? And I know my mother, who's seen a previous World War as well. She's been, actually hurting cash money, saving it because, so it's an interesting prospect to think about it. And the whole decentralized ownership is interesting as well. I'm working with another case where they're working with chain of custody using blockchain, distributed ledger technology to make sure that it's a tamper-proof service where you can actually see that nobody has opened. It's an anti-doping test.
I heard about that. That was cool.
Nobody has actually opened this in the wrong place.
And they combine it with the hardware and
exactly.
It's super cool,
and that's I think it's a very good user example of how to use a distributed ledger technology where you can actually, nobody can ever open anything without it showing.
Yes, and the technology provides for that trustless, decentralized data store where everyone can see that the data has not been tampered with, and that everyone agrees what the current state of the data is. And the problem is generally when that leaves the digital world, goes to the physical world, because someone has to get the information into the digital world, right? But in your case, they've really innovated in terms of the physical product as well, and made sure that that's also not tamper-proof.
I think we have hundreds of user cases that we haven't understood or seen yet when it comes to the whole Web3 and crypto, everything.
I hope so.
I mean, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, and I think that we've seen the obvious things, but the killer apps.
And the most important thing a big reason why I'm a believer in the space and that I believe innovation is going to come is because it's the first time that we've actually open sourced the financial industry, right? Previously, it's only been innovating in the financial space has been very tightly controlled. You have to have connections, you have to work inside the financial institutions. But now the entire stack of digital money, digital goods, digital scarcity, all of that is open source and available for anyone to build on. And then you set innovation completely free because everyone's minds can start working on these problems and start to build things. And that's also why you see a lot of projects building, failing, succeeding. I mean, it's all over the place.
And I'm really excited about what you also said about using the financial instruments in places where there isn't a strong financial infrastructure. I mean, in Sweden, it was hard to go to mobile payments because everybody had plastic that worked seamlessly. In other places where you didn't have plastic or any bank accounts, then mobile payments took off much faster. So that's a super interesting thing. I'm just looking at the clock here. This is a half an hour coffee break. I mean, the time just passes so quickly, and we cannot leave you without our guest giving us his top 3 tips.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we only have 5 minutes to go here. But we will not stop. Well, I have to take away the banner there as well. We will not leave you without giving you the top 3 tips. So we have Filip Martinsson's top 3 tips to how to start working with it and how to start getting into it and how to start thinking about everything regarding, regarding crypto and blockchain and NFTs and currencies. And tip number 1 from Filip Martinsson is invest carefully.
Yes. So I chose this tip because I I do want to encourage people to invest in the space because I'm a believer in the space, and I have part of my portfolio invested in cryptocurrency. But people should do it with caution. They should not go all in some small altcoin, but they should perhaps take a small part of the portfolio. They can decide if that is 1%, 5%, or 10%, whatever it is, whatever you're comfortable with. But if you're curious about the space, a great way to get down the rabbit hole is to put a small amount in. And you're also exposed then to an industry that is growing incredibly quickly, that has given great returns in the past. But of course, I don't know what's going to do in the future. No one knows. But that's why I put that carefully there.
Yeah. I mean, there are equal amounts of stories of people who've made lots of money with people who have lost lots of money.
Definitely.
So I actually have a happy story because I actually gave my niece, Rebecca, I gave her, I bought blockchain for 500 SEK kronas. Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like 10 years
Wow.
back.
And she still has it? Or she lost it?
No. She and when it had passed 20,000 kronas in value, like that, I told her to go spend it on something for herself.
So she did a 400x or something.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the happy stories. And I was going, why didn't I do 5,000? But you always do. It's always easy to be. Tip number 2. Start a career in Web3.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much exciting things. There's so many exciting companies in this space. And the opportunities for a career here is tremendous. If you have the passion for this industry and you have some sort of talent or background in whatever it is, I mean, there's people we need people for marketing. We need people for IT. We need people for just copywriting, for anything that a normal business needs. We need it in Web3, designers, whatever it is. And the companies are incredibly innovative. They're fun to work with. You can work remotely all over the world because that's sort of the spirit of this industry, and you make good money. So I encourage anyone that's curious to look out on the different job boards that exist, or if you want to work in Moralis, we have plenty of positions open there as well. Because you'll be in an exciting industry and have something very, very special on your resume.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. That's a really good tip there. And then tip number 3 from Filip Martinsson from Moralis is join hackathons.
Yeah. If you're just an individual developer, you like, sitting here at KTH Innovation, maybe just building out stuff. The hackathons that are available in Web3 are insane. If you look at the prize pools that are available, because some of these protocols in crypto, they have so much money and they don't know what to do with it. So they want to encourage innovation. They want to encourage developers to come into their ecosystem. So the prices for these hackathons are insane. So you can really take a project and win or do 3rd place in the hackathon and get a bootstrapped startup from there, So I would encourage you to check out. We're having hackathons at Moralis all the time with different sponsors, with different platforms that we collaborate with. You can check out those. We just did one with the blockchain called Avalanche. I think we had a prize pool total of $250,000.
Well, in a hackathon?
Yes.
That is insane.
It is insane. But people don't really realize it. People that are outside the space don't realize it. So if you're just looking to have fun, maybe join a team. We have a community where you can find a team and have fun. And worst case scenario, just have fun. Best case scenario, you win $10,000.
Looking at Manuel, who asked that question before, because I know that they're heading into that space. So keep your eyes open for that as well. With that, we are at 14:58 of our 30-minute coffee break. And I just want to say thank you so very much for this super fast-paced half hour, Filip. I've learned a lot. I hope everybody else has learned a lot. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, reach out to Filip as well, of course, on LinkedIn, and check out Moralis, super cool company. We're very proud of them, of course, because we're kind of feel like they kind of came from here as well,
The spirit came
from here. So that feels great. And I'm so thankful you came here, and come back again and we'll do the metaverse thing.
Definitely.
Awesome.
And thank you for having me here. It was super fun.
That's great. Indeed. So thanks everyone. You know what to look out for: 2:30 p.m. Wednesday afternoons, Innovation Fika with Donny and really cool guests like this guy. Bye for now. Thanks again.
Bye.